Before I get into this other recap for the day, I want to shout out every single person that discovered Unstoppable Recap and went on over to Unstoppable Live and is now a supporter of the live stream. Thank you so much. Alright, because I've seen so many comments in the comment section over there on the live channel saying that Unstoppable, we came over from the recap channel. So welcome and big up. If you're watching right now and you have not yet gone over to the live channel, make sure go over to the live channel and check out some of the live shows over there as well. Now, let's jump right into today's recap without any more long talking. Take a listen to this one that was shared on Unstoppable Live.
My ex and I started from high school. So we met in high school and we had a plan, we had a future, and majority of it was my big idea, and it was to join the military after high school. So to let everybody know, I'm Jamaican and he's American. So he ended up graduating a year before I did. So he ended up going in after I talked him into it. And the idea was for me to follow him. But my dad said that no, and now I'm going to sign the paper because they never bring me in America to fight a war. So he didn't sign it because I was underage at the time. So I moved on with my life. And while when he went in, he was still contacting me. Like we were still communicating. Even though I was in a relationship, he was still communicating, thinking that I was still going to follow him. And when he got drafted to the Persian Gulf is when I completely lost him. Years after, I was in a relationship and the relationship wasn't going well. So I said, you know what? Let me see if I can find him. So I went on MySpace and I sent everybody that has his name a message. And some people come back and send me a message saying, hey, it's not me. I'm like 90-something years old. And one time, and it took me some messages to finally get to that one. He sent me back a message and he called out like, and all he sent back was my whole entire name. And at that point, we exchanged number and we started talking. By the time he reached back to me, I had already started a new relationship. And he asked me to marry him. And I told him, no, I can't marry him because I'm in a new relationship and everything is going good. And he asked me if he don't have, he said he don't have any kids and he want to get married. And he wants to give his parents children. So he asked me, he said, okay, so if I froze my sperm, would you give if something happened to me, would you in return give my parents their grandkids?
All right, this is my first question, Carla. How long after reconnecting with him, or how soon I should say, after reconnecting with him, these things started coming your way? Because you said you found him again after searching for him and going through multiple persons, right? And then one person finally reached out to you and it was him. Now, the next step was he said, will you marry him? And then will you have his baby if him freeze him sperm and all of that? How soon after reconnecting with him these things came about? Because we need to know time frames here.
Right, okay. So when I find him, it was years later. It was like probably about 5 or 6 years later, after high school. And right after I find him, he said he wasn't married and he was tired of running around because he was in the military, doing what most military guys do. So he says he don't want to run around and he see what his peers are doing and he don't want to live that lifestyle. So he wants to just go ahead and get married because he was also looking for me.
And he said that was right away. Right away. He came at you with that.
Right away. Yes, that was right away. Because he said when I find him, he said he was also looking for me, and he went to the old house that I used to live in high school looking for me, and I wasn't there. And but see, my dad had rented that house. My dad had rented that house out. When he went to look for me, the lady that was living in the house told my stepmom that a young man came with a uniform looking for me, and she didn't tell my father. So therefore, I didn't know.
Okay.
And I didn't know that he was looking because the message never came to me. So when I met him again, or found him again, he just right off the bat, he just said to me, like, I want to get married. Will you marry me? And I'm like, no, like I just started a relationship and everything is good. And he talked about this sperm thing and stuff. Like weeks go on, and he said that he's coming to the state that I was in to visit. And I said, okay. So when he came to the state, he was on leave, and he said, he asked me again. I told him no. Before he left, he said to me that he found a girl and he's just going to marry her. I said, okay. I mean, it kind of sting a little bit, but what can I do? I was in a relationship, and it's like, I'm not going to leave what I'm with right now because there was nothing wrong with that relationship to move forward with you because I don't know. I just wasn't feeling that. But it kind of sting knowing that, he finds somebody else and he's going to get married. So he asked me again. I'm going to tell him, no.
Now, in just a question again. Now, with all these things happening, you know, feel like him a move kind of swiftly, kind of speedy. Because, I mean, him ask you for marry him, you say no, then somebody else pop up and automatically him a get married. Like, you didn't think at this time, hey, wait a minute, man, this brother yeah, I move kind of swiftly when it comes to the marriage thing. That didn't cross your mind at all?
The reason why it never crossed my mind was because in the beginning he told me that he really wants to get married and that he don't want to do the runaround thing. Okay. And because we had such a life, we were kids planning our life and we had it all perfectly set up. But in all actuality, we really didn't have nothing set up, because if that's the case, then we would have gotten married, or I would have, because I was underage, I would have waited until I was 18 and then going on my own. But I didn't do that. So when he came around and he said he wanted, because of the type of person that he is, it didn't come any kind of way to me. But for him asking me, it didn't come any kind of way. But for him to meet a person right there on his leave and want to marry her, that right there was kind of like, okay, you're like really desperate then.
Because that's what I'm thinking right now, Right now at this point, I'm like, wait, man. Him ask you, and because you said no, him just move on to the next candidate. That's how it's sounding to me. But I may not be right. Continue.
Right. So when he asked me a couple of times, like hoping that I would say yes, so he won't go with this random person, I said to him, I said, no. So then I asked him, I said, how long have you known this girl? And he said, well, they just met and he's been spending time with her. And, he said that she's a good person. I said, all right. I mean, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. But I just think it's a little too fast because you really don't know her. So he left, and probably about a year later, we were back in like communicate with each other, but not strongly, as to say, oh, we're like in a relationship or anything. Just back and forth as friends every once in a while. And then he told me that he was in Japan. So he was in Japan for about 6 years. About 6 years. And in between that time, I ended up pregnant with my daughter. So I sent him a picture of the sonogram, and he was like really upset because he said, I always envision you having my first child. And I'm like, but you're married. And he said, well, marriage is not, it's not going anywhere, because he wants kids, and there's things that he wanted in a marriage that she's not willing to give him because she's not ready. So he just said that the marriage is not going anywhere. They're more so looking into divorce. At that time, after I had my daughter, my relationship with my daughter's dad wasn't the greatest either. It was looking bad. So I left and went and moved on my own because I was living in his house. So I left and moved in on my own with my daughter. And I visited my sister in another state in which he was stationed in. Because by now he's back into the United States, and he's back into the United States, and he's positioned in another state, and so happened to be the same state that my sister was in, that I usually travel frequently to visit my sister. So when I went to that state, he know that I was coming, and he drove up and saw me. We went to the hotel room where he was staying. We did not.
Wait, stop right there for a minute. So you went to visit your sister, right? It wasn't to see him. You went to visit your sister.
Went to visit my sister, but it's kind of like a double whammy because he was in that same state and he knew I was coming. So it's like, okay, I went to go visit my sister. But as a matter of fact, back up a little bit. After I had my daughter, right after I had my daughter, before he was positioned into that state, he came to the state that I was in again. And this was the first time that I've seen him since high school. It was like, it felt good. It felt really good because this was my first boyfriend. I'm first boyfriend for everything. So it's kind of like first love at that time. You're going through some stuff. And again, he was still married at the time. We didn't do nothing. We just saw each other. And it felt good to see him again. And then he met my daughter. She was an infant at the time.
So when you saw him, it bring back everything just like that. Everything just come back because it is your first love. So that's understandable. Seeing him for the first time again, everything just came right back, just came flushing in. I understand. All right, so go on. You went to visit your sister, you and him link up, and then what happened?
Went to link up. We went to his hotel room. We didn't do nothing because he was still married, and I have respect for myself. So we didn't do nothing. We just, talk in the hotel privately. And later on that evening, he took me back to my sister's house. Okay. We went out to eat, and then we went to my sister's house. That was that for that trip. Went back to the state that I was living in, and ended up going, after he got a divorce, I flew back out to that state. At this time, I didn't go to my sister. I went directly to him because now he got a divorce. I'm single. You're single. Okay. So we had activities. And the activities was very active. There was no...
Wait. You move kind of fast, man. Wait. I don't want to fly over my head. Me not really understand what I'm going. Wait. You say you and him link up again a second time?
We linked up again. Actually, after my sister, because we didn't do anything because he was married. And out of respect for myself and the woman that he was married to, I didn't do anything with him. Okay? So I went back home. And in between the time of me going back home, he ended up getting a complete full divorce. So by him getting a complete full divorce, and I was single, I went out back to that state. And when I went back to that state, it was full 100.
Well, like Gary says, the second time around, you go and start mix up all heap of cake. We are gonna use that. We are gonna use the phrase that Gary. Yes, all heap of cake start get mixed up. All right, go on. Yes, the cake start mix up and then what go on? You know, where you say go on with the cake?
Mixing, and there was a lot of steam in the kitchen with the cake.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know.
It was a lot of steam. You know, one thing I want to say before I add into this, every sex is not good sex. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna address that when I finish telling you guys why I said that.
Okay.
So because everything was kinky and dirty, gritty, nasty, as nasty as you can imagine, that's what it was. It's not good sex.
Wait. You know you're not gonna just say that and me just make that just pass, so no. Now I go just say that and me just make that just pass, so. So you're telling me that it wasn't good with him? Or you're just saying not because doesn't mean it's good? Are you saying it wasn't good with him?
This is a hard place. Okay, I'm a fast forward a lot. The reason why I said that is because the current guy that I'm with right now, best love making in my life.
All right, no, we get it. No,
because it's meaningful.
No, we get. No, I understand.
It has meaning to it.
Yeah, no,
okay?
I understand where you're coming from.
You can eat the booty and do all kind of stuff that you want to do. This is we can't really say too much graphic stuff on here, I would assume, but you can have it as kinky as you want to and still not good sex. Why? Because it's meaningless. And the reason why it was meaningless, never tell her no as I go forward. Oh no, we'll catch on. I went to go visit him, and then the kitchen was steamed.
So no, wait, it just come to me now when you say he was into the kinky stuff. No, everything just connect. Now me understand what you mean by that. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Like No Limit Soldier.
I was a little bit
He was
lost.
a No Limit Soldier.
Oh.
He was a No Limit Soldier, okay?
So there was nothing that was off limits as far as he is concerned.
Exactly. So I had that visit, but there were certain things I realized when I was there. Like, I'm seeing Viagra pills. I'm seeing like a whole bunch of condoms. And I looked at him like, you know what? He's just coming out of a marriage. Maybe that's just with him, and it's something that is right. Because, I remember him saying his wife didn't want children, and that added a lot. So I'm making excuses for the things that I'm saying. Left, I went back to the state. Finished on vacation, I went back to the state that I was in. And we constantly, like interacting. And there was a couple other times that I went to go visit him. One night, this man told me that he met this girl on a dating site, and he's gonna marry her. I said, "What? You're gonna marry her? So what about me?
Wait. So at this point, if you can remember, because I know this is all nothing fresh right now, but if you can remember, at this point, how long were you fooling with him during this time? Yeah, let's use the word fooling with him. Yes.
It was about playing with him.
Yeah. Mixing up the cake. Yeah. How long were you mixing up the cake with him during this time?
Well, we were mixing the cake for probably about 2 years. Yeah. About 2.5 years. Yes, about 2.5 years, because he was positioned in that state for about 3 years plus. No more than 4 years he was in that state for. So it was about 2 years, yes.
So during this time, for 2.5 years, that una mix up all the cake in the oven, in the kitchen, right? During this time, were you his girlfriend at this time?
I had no title.
You had this conversation with him?
Many a time.
So what was his reason for not giving you a title?
His main excuse was, well, I really love you and I care about you, and I don't want Ava to be traveling all over oh, Lord. I don't want your daughter to be traveling all over the place, and I don't want, I seen military family go all over the place, and I don't want it to be like that, and it was that excuse.
Yeah,
It
but
was always,
what does that have to do with giving what you're not doing a title? I mean, none of that excuse right there sounded like a good enough reason for you not to say, okay, I was his girlfriend, we were in a relationship, or for him to say, yes, babes, you are my woman, we are
no.
in an official relationship. I don't think any of those
His
excuses.
thing was we were in a relationship, right? But there wasn't no title. It wasn't no girlfriend or boyfriend or fiance or wife and husband. It was like we're in a relationship. And I never understand that. I'm
That
always like,
I
okay,
can't
what is
understand it either. We're in a relationship, but there's no title. It now makes sense to me.
right? So that was the thing, okay? So I said, okay, I'll roll with you for right now. I'll see, where this is going. Now let me tell everybody, I am not a stupid person. I'm a well educated woman. I have 2 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you're in a situation, it's hard for you to,
The person on the
you're
outside can see
blindsided,
it better. The person on the outside
can
can see
see
it better than you.
crystal clear,
Right, I understand.
crystal clear.
That happens
But
a
you're
lot.
in it, and you make a lot of excuses while you're in it, and
Mm-hmm.
that becomes your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay,
Now, someone in the
so
chat is
my
saying,
comfort.
someone in the chat is asking, and I want to ask this question as well. Don't you think that he was just a military player at at that time in his life? Don't you think that he was just
No,
a militant player? Just a go from woman to woman and just a play woman?
at that time, no, I did not. I just feel like as if I was because another thing that he used to always shove in my face was, we're in this predicament because you never married me when I asked you to, right? And that was, yes, there's going to be tons of red flags, tons of it. But again, we make excuses to be in our comfort space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So there's always red flags. And you know these red flags after you're coming out of this. Well, you knew them before, but the excuses put up a blind side. And when you're out of the situation is when you go, what the hell? Like, I should have left when this first thing happened, but it don't work like that. For some reason, it does not work like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when he told me that he met this lady and he's going to engage to her, they're going to get married. He did buy the ring, so he did engage. He bought the ring, but he never gave her the ring yet. And apparently he said that her father had contacted him and was like, okay, well, why are you holding this on? And why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But the reason why he never gave her the ring, he said, was because she was in a fraternity and he felt like the fraternity can't come first. So he felt like he wouldn't have a good relationship because every minute she'll be gone. And I said, well, you're in the military. So what difference does that make? I guess I helped him out when I said that because next thing I know, she had the ring. Okay. About a couple months, not even quite a year. I'm not going to say a couple. Couple's too. Few months. He called me. He says, he's trying to get the ring back. So I said, what? He said, I'm trying. At this point, I was just done with him. I was pissed. I was hurt. I was done. So he called me and he says, I'm trying to get a ring back. And I said to him, I said, well, why are you calling me? And he said, you're my best friend. So I said, okay, so that's what I am now. We left we are best friend in a relationship. And I remember every single conversation that we had because it meant a lot to me with this man at the time. So he said, can we not do this right now? And he went on to talk about his situation that he was going through. And every time I just sat in and I listened, I had nothing to say. And when I had enough, I told him I had enough.
All right, hold on. See, I want to make sure that, like me, the listeners are not confused. I want to make sure. So I'm going to ask you now. So him call you and him say him want the ring back, right? Was this during the engagement to this woman, or did he actually get married to this other woman? I want to be sure.
They weren't married. They were just engaged.
Oh, they were
didn't
just
make it to the
engaged.
marriage part.
Okay, okay,
They didn't
okay.
make it to marriage because he felt some kind of way about her being in a fraternity. So he ended up giving her the ring, and then he wanted it back because the situation didn't get better. So he called and talked to me.
And during this time that he was engaged to this other woman, who he proposed to, while he wouldn't give you and him relationship, phone cake baking a title, because on still did a bake cake during this time when him tell us that he might go propose to someone else, right?
Yep, cake was
cake still did that get mixed up. And him still go propose to a whole other woman. So during this time, after he told you this, right? Were you still in communication with him during the time where he was with this other person preparing to get married?
No, once in a while he would send me a message, and I would have 1 and 2 words for him, and that was it. When sometimes he would call me, and I would purposely just don't answer it.
This was during the time he was engaged.
Right, for the few months that he was engaged to her, it was like that, cold shoulders. Then he sent me a text saying that he wanted to get the ring back. So I was intrigued. So of course I called him back to figure out, okay, like, what are you talking about? He didn't answer the phone. So then he called me back and he started telling me about the situation. And I was like, okay, but why are you telling me? Like, for what reason? So he, we started talking, and he just brushed me off and told me, like, he's not going to go into that. And then he started talking about his situation with this young lady. After that ordeal, he eventually did get his ring back. I went back out again. I went back out to go visit him and bake whole nother cake. Okay. This time when we bake a cake, I said to him, I said, I need to know, like, what is this? Like, what are we? Because we keep coming back to the same spot, and I want to move forward. Like, I don't want to be in the same spot anymore. This has been since high school. So again, he reminded me that I should have had his first kid, and he should have never had that divorce, and I should have married him from the first get-go. And I just said, and then he said, well, in order for us to get married right now, you would have, at that time, I was not a citizen. So he said, in order for us to get married right now, you would have to be a citizen because of the job and the duties that I do in the military. So I said, okay. After I finish baking my cake in that state, or we baked the cake or whatever, I went back home and I started doing my citizenship. Again, another red flag, because he didn't pay for it. I did. So if this man really wanted me, he should have paid for it. Okay? But I went ahead and I do it anyway because it's something, at the end of the day, something to benefit me, because I have an American kid. And at the time I was in school, and I'm figuring I'm working in America, so I can get all my benefits. When I retire, I might as well. But to top it off, my main reason to doing it, full-blown American, because I was going to do dual citizenship when I did it, but I went full-blown American because of him. So I went ahead and I did it. I called him and I said, hey, as a matter of fact, I sent him a picture of the certification. And he said, wow, that was it. So then I called him and I said, what you mean, wow? I mean, this is great, right? I was a little naive, okay? I said, this is great, right? Now we can go ahead and get married. So he says, yeah, but a little hesitant. So I said, okay, took a couple things up from that. And we were still talking. In between then, he was getting ready to be sent to Bahrain. And he left and went to Bahrain. Still, that was the end of conversation about the marriage and the marriage and me being a citizen. It was like water under the bridge. I moved to the state where he was staying at, and mainly because the school system wasn't because of him, but mainly because the school system in this state where I'm still living is better. And then my sister and her family was here.
Well,
But anyway,
Carla, well, you say you didn't mainly move to the States because of him. That's not the part that I'm sitting here wondering what if you did it because of him, you know. I'm trying to figure out if you went and did your citizenship because of him, because I'm trying to figure out.
I did a citizenship because of him, because I wasn't going to do full-blown American. I was going to do dual citizenship. But I went ahead and I do full-blown American simply because he say the duties that he do in the military, he cannot have too much of he have to report. He have to, if he's married to a non-American, there's a certain procedure that he has to go through that he didn't want to go through, or doing a bunch of reporting and stuff. So therefore he said, I have to be an American. So I did full-blown American because he said so.
All right. This is what it all boils down to. You were really, really 100% in love with this man. In every sense of the word. There was nothing you wouldn't do for him at that time.
At that time, that is correct. That was my, well, still is, my first love. Like, yeah, high school and all at the time. But when he I moved to this state and he went overseas. And when he came back to the state, he spent a few years there. When he came back to the state, he went to California. I also went and baked some cake in California. Still no title, but still the title of being in a relationship, but still no girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, wife, none of that. A few years of visiting him in California, it came time for him to retire. And he had one more deployment that he needs to go on. So I went to go visit him before that last deployment, and we talked, and he said, well, the marriage thing came up again, and he said, well, I can't marry you because now it's not my daughter. Now it's about his deployment and him not knowing for sure if he's going to come back alive because of his duties. So I said to him, well, that's all the better why we should get married, simply because you want to have something to look forward to. Like, you want to have something to come back home to. This was another red flag, okay? He left and went on his deployment. While he was on his deployment, he said, as a matter of fact, we were speaking of when he finished his retirement, when he finished with the military, he was going to move to the state that I'm in, and we were going to be together. And this is when the dream all started flowing in and stuff, right? At this point, I didn't believe in it. It's like, okay, whatever. So he went on his deployment, and we were interacting, having phone sex and all. And I was at my computer working, and I received an email, and it was like a Dear John letter. And it says, as a matter of fact, around that time when I received that, I just lost my little baby cousin. He was 8. In Jamaica, he had drowned. They all went to the river, and nobody was really looking at him until they were all ready to go and couldn't find him. So he drowned. I was taking that hard because he's the same age as my daughter, and it was hard. I was talking to him about it, so I wasn't expecting to get a damn digital letter at this time of my life. But he sent me a Dejan letter saying he's not moving to the state anymore that I'm in. He found someone that loves him, and he loves her, she loves him. They're going to get married, they're going to have kids. And this was for real. I was so shocked. The only thing that I could say to him was, because I had stuff at his place in California, was to please mail me my things.
Alright family, extremely interesting, right? Well, not to worry, if you want to listen to the rest of it, click the link in the description. It will take you over to Unstoppable Live where you can listen to the rest of the story in its entirety. When you go over there, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that once we go live, you can participate in the live show, call in and give your views, your take, your opinions. Alright? Listen, subscribe to the recap channel as well so that once we drop a recap video, you don't miss it and you will see the show that you probably missed. Until the next Unstoppable Recap, stay strong, stay motivated, but most of all, remain unstoppable.
Unstoppable.